am so stupid. I was not streaming. I was recording for the past 45 minutes. I have been streaming, quote unquote, for 45 minutes. I am even going to show you, here, hold on. Gonna swap this around. I'm even going to show you. Display capture. Yeah, see that? That is 46 minutes now. Okay, hold on. Why am I hearing myself? Uh... Okay, that's why. I had it open. Yeah, that's embarrassing. Well, shoot. I was kind of on a roll there. Alright, I guess, yeah, we're live now. That is, I don't even think I saved the recording, though. Oh well. So, yeah, My Hero Academia ended. I guess I have to try to condense, although I was having network issues for the past, like, 10 minutes anyway. And that's when I realized that I wasn't actually streaming yet. That explains why no one was talking. So yeah, after 10 years of serialization, My Hero Academia has finally come to an end. I want to focus on celebrating the series and highlight the things that it excelled at, but terminally online people have spent the past week trying to ruin the fun for everyone. And when I say last week, I actually mean the last 5 years. Yeah, Deckire, laugh it up. Everyone laugh it up. I'm gonna laugh it up on Twitter when I'm done with this too. That I've never made that mistake before. I usually like start too soon, and then like have like 10 minutes of dead air because I'm still like getting soda and stuff. Uh, Thank you, Coop. Hello, Deku himself. Um, oh, I said so many things that were so fun. Uh, yeah, people that now I'm starting to get messages. I should when I realized I wasn't sure, I should have loaded up the all my theme the that bum 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 da 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 da. But yeah. So first things first. The first thing I need to address, other than my own failure to click the fucking go live button for 45 minutes. The next thing I need to address is the fact that there's a lot of blatant lies going on about the ending. I had a whole like weird tangent that I went on about like localizers, though it's not really localizers' fault. So I would have recanted on that anyway. But yeah, I have never in my 31 years of existence seen a show that has garnered this much illiterate slander from people who either haven't read the series or have limited reading comprehension. This has ranged from people not understanding the ever-changing nature of superheroes to people not knowing what it's like to have friends as an adult. This is a problem with the what I call like the terminally online or Tumblr people, where they just have a really hard time comprehending like what it's like to have guy friends as a guy or lady friends as a lady or platonic relationships as either or just having friends as an adult. Like, it's really difficult when you have a 9 to 5 job to have your schedule match up with other people's schedules so that you can actually hang out. Um, and uh, yeah, there's a lot of that with My Hero Academia chapter 430, which is the final chapter, and a lot of it was like done on purpose, and that irritates me more than anything. Uh, the whole idea that like this is a weird. I was actually talking to High Powered about this in DMs. Uh, it is weird that no relationships got confirmed one way or the other. Like, it does not talk about their professional lives at all. Or their personal lives at all. It's only their professional lives. It's only like what they're doing as heroes or as, as their 9 to 5s, um, which is a weird choice, uh, especially compared to like other big Shonen Jump endings like Naruto, um, that chapter 700 Naruto very famously was just like, and here's all the kids and what they look like. Bleach had a similar final chapter. Demon Slayer made it extra lame by like having it be like 200 years later, and it's not even like their kids. It's their reincarnations who inexplicably have all the same scars that their demon slaying ancestors had. That makes no sense. Like that's not how reincarnation works, as far as I know. Um, but yeah, I do plan on doing other videos on My Hero Academia in the future. I've always intended to do an honest look at Shigaraki at some point. I actually have part of a script already written for that. I'm kind of waiting on the anime to end. I know season 7 is going on right now. I've been keeping up with that. I've been and I know that it's gonna get pretty far, like a lot further into the war arc than a lot of people were initially estimating. And they'll probably be able to finish it up with just a movie or something, which is a lot better than what Demon Slayer is doing right now, which is trying to stretch its final uh, bullshit arc into 3 whole movies. Which, God, Demon Slayer just frustrates me. Uh, my frustration at Demon Slayer is what created this format, where when a big manga ends, I just go live to talk about it. Uh, so yeah, I'm skipping some of the tangents I went on my first attempt at this, because it's not really important to get into like the whole localization issue. Uh, not right now anyway. Just the long story short, people like Jello Apocalypse screwed it up for everyone. By being egotistical, thinking that their translations can improve on the source material, when that's not their job. It's not their job to improve on it. It's their job to try to bring it to the English speaking world. Uh, yeah. So, the controversial opinion, I think My Hero Academia is the single greatest, most comprehensively complete superhero story ever. I can think of plenty of individual storylines or runs that are better written or more influential on the genre. But they all lack a vital quality, which is that they don't really end. They get passed on from writer to writer, artist to artist, accumulating continuity until it reaches a breaking point. Uh, like I said, I can think of plenty of runs that I love. Like, I love the Denny O'Neil Batman stuff. I love Steve Englehart's Captain America. I love Ed Brubaker's Captain America. Frank Miller's Daredevil. Brian Michael Bendis' Daredevil. Uh, Lynn Wein and then Chris Claremont's X-Men. Uh, the first whole, 25, 30 years worth of Spider-Man stories is all just excellent. Um, but they lack the logical, quote unquote conclusion, and because they just keep going on and on forever, uh, they run out of stakes. They run out of stakes really fast. Just as an example, Batman comic a few years ago had Bane kill Alfred. Alfred's been dead in the comics for a couple years now. And this is something that it's the biggest shakeup to Batman's status quo since his origin was rewritten in the 80s. Batman Year One. It should be a lot bigger deal than it is, but nobody cares, and not very many people talk about it because everyone just sort of knows that someday some other writer will come along and find a way to resurrect Alfred. And once that happens, the only people who will even mention Alfred's death are the people who bother to read and remember that story. The only thing thus far noteworthy about Alfred's death is how long they've committed to the bit. And you're all, and I've seen this in my lifetime with both Red Hood and Winter Soldier, both of whom had their storylines go on at the exact same time. By the way, a little bit like who was cheating off whose homework, Ed Brubaker and Judd Winick. Where when when Jason Todd died, it was treated as a really big deal. Robin got brutally killed. He got beaten half to death with a crowbar and then blown the fuck up. That was dark and terrifying, and that was something that had never happened to Robin, either Robin, or any of the other teenage sidekicks before that. And it's something that stuck with Batman for a long time. He did. It was within a year of publication that they introduced Tim Drake as the new Robin, and all that happened, but it never changed Batman's psyche or what he was dealing with, which is why I think late 90s Batman is actually some of the best Batman. That is just really because of one storyline, No Man's Land, which is my favorite Batman storyline. It was kind of the last hurrah for Denny O'Neil returning to the character after having redefined him back in the 70s. But then you had the Red Hood storyline, which happened in 2005. And from there, every time Jason Todd gets introduced, the only thing people really remember about Jason Todd is that, he's the Robin who died, and he comes back as Red Hood. There's no longer any real drama in killing him because you don't have that, unprecedented stuff going on. Because when, another thing about Jason Todd said, when Jason Todd died, it was at a time where DC was no, dead means dead. We could do fake out deaths, we could do, some hand-wavy nonsense, but no more multiverse, and if we're going to commit to the bit, we're going to commit to the bit. And they committed to Jason Todd being dead for about 16 years. Which is a lot longer than they committed to a lot of other stuff around that time. But yeah, it loses its weight the longer you go and the more you just undo stuff like that. And same thing happened with Bucky Barnes. Bucky Barnes was dead for 40 years of continuity, or 40 years of publication. He was alive in 1947 when the initial run of Captain America got canceled. He was, quote unquote, alive in the 50s for the Commie Smasher stuff. Um, and then that was right kind of be like, no, that wasn't actually Bucky Barnes, and that wasn't even really Steve Rogers. That was the William Burnside and Jack Monroe, yada, yada, yada. But Bucky was revealed to have died in World War II when Captain America was brought back in Avengers number 4. And he was dead, and he stayed dead. There was a lot of fake outs. Like, fake out returns were like, oh, Bucky's back. Oh, nope, it's actually just a hypnotized goon that got plastic surgery. Oh my god, Bucky's back. Nope, it's actually an android programmed to kill Captain America. Oh no, Bucky's back. Nope, it's actually just an illusion trying to fuck with Captain America's head. Like, that. And it kept on going like that for decades. And then when they brought Bucky Barnes back for the Winter Soldier storyline, that story was excellent and also like just a must-read story at the time. And now, anytime you see World War II Bucky, you're like, all right, how long until he dies? And then how much longer after that before he becomes the Winter Soldier? And like in the MCU, he died 2/3 of the way through the first movie and then came back pretty much right away in the second Captain America movie. And I love those movies. I think there's one of the... I think the Chris Evans version of Captain America is one of the best adaptations we've ever gotten of any superhero ever. But, like, that is the nature of these ongoing storylines and how, like, you can't really keep track of all the, like, endless tapestry of continuity, and people who jump into it later on, they can't really feel the weight of what's happening. And you see this with manga, too. I don't want to pretend like manga is exempt from this. There's a lot of points in longer running shows like One Piece where, like, if you jump into One Piece now, you're like, oh, they're going to be fine. We got 1,000 more episodes to go. Who cares? Like, get on with it. Whereas when you're reading week to week or watching week to week, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen next because I don't know how much longer this is going to run. But yeah, with manga, they're at least able to, like, have that definitive endpoint that they're able to build to if they want. Some of them don't. Dragon Ball exists. Although that I heard that they might not be bringing Dragon Ball back after Toriyama's passing. I kind of heard a rumor that they're gonna wrap up the storyline that Super had going on, and then that's gonna be it. And then we also got Dragon Ball Daima, which is something completely different. Yeah, and it's the committal thing that that causes issues. Yeah, mangakas just generally have a completely different creative approach that is much more auteur driven. But while many mangas have heroes or hero adjacent characters, not very many of them have really asked what it means to be a hero, nor have they explored the implications of those questions. My Hero Academia takes a lot of inspiration from Chris Claremont's run on X-Men. Chris Claremont was the guy who really doubled down on the civil rights allegory for the X-Men. He's the one who really made it about the social commentary. which had always been there, but at a more like low applicability level, or a broader applicability level, rather. Uh, and then you see this all over with My Hero Academia, from the various social commentary on like mental health, self defense, idolatry, uh, justice, punishment, a lot of mental health stuff as well. And that's because like Japan has a completely different set of social issues that they've had to deal with than America has. Talking about segregation and stuff is very pertinent to American history. I've said this before, but I believe that segregation had far more drastic and far larger negative impact on American society than even slavery did. Uh, that might not be a popular opinion, but I do have I can back that up with some facts if need be. Um, Whereas Japan, a lot of their social issues are like workplace hazards, a lack of free time for their hardest workers, uh, a lack of access to mental health, a high suicide rate. Um, My Hero Academia never goes so far as to address the suicide issue, but it does like allude to that sort of aspect, especially in the end with like Toga and then Uraraka standing on the edge of the cliff, and then Deku running in to like hold her like that. That is very loaded. That was some loaded imagery, and I think that was chapter 429. Uh, there's also a lot of Spider-Man, particularly like 80s era Spider-Man. The Dark Deku arc is very similar to like the Symbiote Saga by Dave Michelini and Todd McFarlane. Of course, there's also Sky High, and again, X-Men kind of started the whole superhero school thing, as far as I know. Sky High was the one that like, we're training heroes to be heroes as if heroes are a 9 to 5 job, whereas X-Men was more like, we're secret superheroes. You know, the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, they're the ones who get all the publicity. We're the ones like going around the world doing covert ops superhero work. Like, that was kind of the appeal of the X-Men. That was why they were called the X-Men. It was a play on the G-Men, which were like a spy group. Then, of course, you got Golden Age, Siegel and Schuster run on Superman. The appeal of Superman to me is not so much in like his overpoweredness or what it means or the kind of creativity you have in order to make that work. It's really in the breath of relief when that character shows up. All Might has one of the greatest Superman style moments at the end of the USJ arc when he shows up, and it's like this very harrowing experience. Froppy's about to get disintegrated by Shigaraki, and then the doors kick open, the triumphant music plays, All Might is pissed, and then he goes ham on Nomu. And that breath of relief, that, oh, thank God moment, that's what makes a great Superman moment. And that's one of the big reasons why the Max Fleischer version of Superman is still my favorite Superman. Then, of course, you got inspiration from other shonen titles like Naruto and a lot of One Piece. There's a lot of like little nods to One Piece. Oda is, of course, senpai for Horikoshi, and Horikoshi had some of his very first published pieces of art exhibited because they were One Piece fan art. He had One Piece fan art exhibited by Shonen Jump at various points when he was a teenager. Before he, long before he started writing My Hero Academia. Uh, and the manga, because manga's more auteur driven and they don't have to worry about like the world right outside your window stuff that Marvel does. Um, they're allowed to they get a lot more leeway to kind of like make tweaks to the world in a way that makes sense. You see that a lot with My Hero Academia with the like hero agencies, the celebrity culture around them, uh, the fact that they are kind of like super cops but also super celebrities. Like I feel like that's a realistic take on superheroes. The various like technology and laws and regulations that would have to happen in order to make a superhero society function without just ramping chaos. The illusions that when quirks did pop up, those laws didn't exist, and so the world was a lot more chaotic, and that's the world that All for One kind of dominated. Uh, but yeah, back to the One Piece inspiration, like just as an example, quirk awakenings uh, are they're it's literally just the same thing as Devil Fruit Awakenings with the way that they expand a quirk's utility. Uh, but yeah, like this is all just another way that it surpasses a lot of American comics because Marvel and DC, especially Marvel is way more guilty about this than DC is. And trying to like ground their setting in some semblance of the real world, which is just inconsolable when the characters have to deal with world-ending threats every other Tuesday. Uh, and just as an anecdotal example of that, I remember I wasn't alive when it was getting published, but I do remember as a kid I read Spider-Man Maximum Carnage, which was from early 90s. Uh, it was Carnage and his crew, and they murder like a third of New York's population. And it's just this horrifying like nightmare show that Spider-Man has to deal with the help of like a couple street level heroes like Daredevil. And then at the very end, the Avengers come in. They're like, "Good job, Spider-Man. We'll take it from here." And like, you couldn't have shown up sooner. Like, a lot of people died. But then that has to get completely brushed under the rug a couple of years later because 9/11 happened, and 9/11 is now like the big tragic thing to happen in New York because it was in real life. But like in Marvel continuity, 9/11 happened like 50 times over in the lead up to 9/11. 9/11 would have been just a drop in the bucket compared to any given rampage from the Juggernaut or Hydra's war machines or Thanos or the Galactus. Like there's a 60s issue of Captain America where a literal like god being descends from the heavens to consume the earth, and it's just it can't, it doesn't matter, and it can't matter because then it would, realistically it would change the society a little bit, have like some kind of impact. But just to kind of rag on DC on this too, there's a Batman comic from the 90s where he deals with like an alien invasion. It's like an X-Files style alien invasion. He's like, aliens aren't real. And I'm just like, I think Superman begs to differ, man. Don't you have like 5 aliens on speed dial? Uh, but no, aliens aren't real because they're not real in real life, so they can't. So Batman can't believe in them. Uh, and you see this a lot with like the really determinate atheist characters in a lot of like Marvel and DC, who will literally meet like Thor and hang out with him and still be like, yeah, I don't believe in gods. But back to My Hero Academia. Uh, Actually, before I get to that, I'm gonna read your guys' chat so far. Ray said hi to Deckire and Coop and Izuku Midoriya. Hello, Makito. Go Beyond Plus Ultra. Makito said, I thought the ending was alright. I feel like the story could have another 100 chapters in the middle. Also, Deku should have been smashing Ochako. I agree on everything except the 100 chapters. I think 430 is a really lean, mean story for My Hero Academia. Not every story needs to be in One Piece. Not every story needs to be this 1,000 chapter or this 1,500 chapter epic that One Piece is going to be by the time it's over. But yeah, I do think it's weird that, like, nobody seems to be in a relationship with anybody, like, inside or outside of the class. Like, it's just, it's really weird, especially when you compare it to other Shonen Jump endings. Coop asked, wait, Jello was the localizer? Jello and Mr. DJ Fly High clarified, like, he was a localizer who got blacklisted for doing dodgy work on an anime. Yeah, that's what happened. Then Mr. DJ Fly High asked, thoughts on Bucky being in the Man on the Wall, sorry, the little thing is blocking it. The Man on the Wall comics. I've not read those, but I do know that isn't the Man on the Wall like the Nick Fury thing? Yeah, I think that's a good role for him. Like he's definitely got the temperament for it. Then Ashbarian said, Gentle and La Brava are married, by the way. Yes, I did notice that they do have wedding rings on their fingers in the one panel that they show up in chapter 430. Which is great. I'm happy for them. Gentle, I do like Gentle and La Brava. I'll get more into them later. That's one of those things where the age gap between them is nowhere near as extreme as it looks like. Like, Gentle looks like an old man, but he's actually like 32. And La Brava looks like a child, but she's actually like 25. It's really weird. Horikoshi has some weird choices with that. And it's one of those things where, like, it's Poe's Law. It's Poe's Law all over again, where it's like, are you doing this to criticize, or are you actually just horny? I think about that every time Momo shows up in her, like, risque outfit, because there's a whole bit where, like, Momo gets, it's the work studies program, season 2, when Deku's with, Gran Torino, and Momo and Kendo go to the one chick. They get recruited by her, and all they do is, like, film commercials. They film commercials for, like, this hair product or whatever, and Momo starts getting, like, kind of pissy because she's just being exploited for her good looks. And this pro hero, this pro female hero who's been in the game, straight up says, like, nobody cares about your brains or your brawn. They only care about your good looks. Us female heroes, we're just set dressing for the men. Is like, that is distressingly accurate. That's a distressingly accurate portrayal of how. That's a distressingly accurate portrayal of, like, how Japan treats, like, idol culture, and how a lot of superhero properties treat their female cast, and what would, what is deemed valuable to a woman compared to a man. And yeah, it's one of those things where, like, are you being sexist, or are you not. High Powered, you have been a mod for like 5 years. You've been a mod ever since we started doing the podcast on my channel. Uh, yeah, there's a little bit of that. It's like I know there's a lot of complaints about Hagakure, um, the invisible girl, how she is just like naked all the time, and it's like it makes sense at first, but then you meet Mirio, and they're like able to make him a costume out of his hair, and it's like, yeah, but like, does that matter when you're invisible? Does it matter that you're naked? But then when she gets hit by lasers, she's not invisible anymore, and there's some like weirdness going on there, and it's like I don't know how much of that is Horikoshi being a bit of a horn dog. I don't know how much of it is meant to be seen as weird, and how much of it is Kohei Horikoshi trying to like say something about fan service, because this is one of those shows that is a lot smarter than people give it credit for, and so I would not be surprised if it was actually just a really deep like social reference to something that is like way easier to understand if you've lived in Japan your entire life. Uh, Makito said, I thought the other classmates would get more development. Shoji got last minute development, and I feel like he could have done more. I agree that a lot of them could have gotten more development, but there's 20 members of the class. Not all of them are going to be as relevant as others. This is a compartmentalization issue with a lot of ensemble casts. And I need to restock my drink real quick. So I will be back in just a minute. Alright, I'm back. I wish, as far as, like, classmates who should have gotten more development, I would have liked more Momo. I think she has a really cool power, and it's really cool that it's the kind of power that is completely useless if you're not, like, super intelligent. Uh, I feel like she kind of peaked. A lot of her showcases are so like low stakes is the thing. Like she had her big moment during the test with Aizawa. Then she had another big moment during the Class 1A versus Class 1B stuff with her versus Kendo. And then, who, by the way, Kendo, the big hands girl, that's, uh, that's a favorite character of mine, for reasons. Um, just look up Kendo My Hero Academia, and you will see uh, a lot of my thinly veiled aesthetic preferences. Uh, uh, and then she has her big moment with coming up with the plan to knock out Gigantamakia, which does work, but doesn't work in time to like save everyone. Um, I am surprised that like I'll get to like final arc stuff later. Uh, the core central theme of My Hero Academia is that anybody can be somebody's hero, even the villains. And this is a continuous theme throughout the entire series. All Might was a hero for Deku. Deku was a hero for all of his classmates. Deku and Bakugo were heroes for All Might. Uraraka was also a hero for Deku at various moments. Um, which is the whole like big kind of like closest thing we got to a confession in the series was him admitting that. Uh, did he have like All for One was Shigaraki's hero. Shigaraki was the hero for all the League of Villains. Uh, the Ares' grandfather was the hero for Overhaul. Deku, Mirio, and Sir Night were the heroes for Eri. Eri is bound to be the hero for a lot of other people with her quirk. And in the last shot we see her with the guitar, which means that like she sees Jiro as an inspiration too. Which that the Heroes 2 stuff is the Heroes 2 scene was my favorite moment that I think the anime did better than the manga, because in the manga it's just like words and balloons and pictures, but in the anime you actually get to hear the song and see the like image of like the specter of Overhaul literally smothering Eri, and then the chorus of Hero 2 blasting that specter away, and Eri smiles for the first time, and Mirio's like, "Are you watching Sir Night Eye? She's smiling. She's really smiling." And that it's such a good show. Um but there's I'm trying to think of some other example. Endeavor was Hawks' hero. Uh is like Endeavor was a better hero for Hawks than he was to his own family. And that's the big tragedy of Endeavor, and one of the things that makes him such a compelling character. Not a good guy at all, but no, he's a pro hero in the 9 to 5 sense. Like, he's a super cop who does a lot of good for the world, does a lot of good for the community, solves more crimes and catastrophes than anybody else, but is also just a raging fucking lunatic. Dude is crazy, and that same like, it's. I talked about this when I was talking about Captain America. I'm drinking Coke like usual, Coop. Uh, like that was the uh thing that I'm always talking about Captain America's stubbornness. Like, Captain America is the most stubborn hero ever, and that's why he's my favorite, because stubbornness is such a great character trait to have for a character, because it's so easy to make it into a positive or a negative. And this same thing goes with like this like single-minded determination to just achieve at all costs, because that same drive that allowed him to like box it out with All for One and burn him to a crisp, and what allowed him to like take on the high end earlier on in the series and claw his way up to the number 2 hero. He's the only one who even tried to compete with All Might. That same drive is the same exact drive that drove his family apart, caused him to abuse his wife, caused him to abuse his kids, caused one of his kids to become a villain. And Dobby's actions are completely on Dobby. Like, Endeavor did not turn him into a serial killer. If anything, Shoto, so weird calling him Shoto. I don't like, one thing I don't like about the ending is that Shoto still doesn't have an actual hero name. He still just goes by Shoto. Um, Even though I usually call him Todoroki, but I can't just call him Todoroki because that's his family name. And his family is a huge, big, like, overarching plot line for the entire series. So, Shoto is a direct refutation of Dabi's entire existence as a member of the League of Villains. Um, because Shoto had it even worse. Shoto got it from both parents. Like, he was punched to the point of, like, vomiting by Endeavor, and then it was, um, his mother who actually poured the boiling water over his face that scar that caused him to get that scar. And yeah, there was Endeavor like driving his wife insane, but he still got it. He still like got the physical abuse worse than Dabi did. But Shoto still decided to be a hero because Shoto had Deku. Shoto had All Might. Shoto had Bakugo, and Shoto especially had Ida, honestly, like, especially at the end. Like, Shoto had these people who held out their hand to him and helped him up. Meanwhile, the only one who extended that hand out and helped Dabi up was All For One and fucking Shigaraki. And that's what I mean when, like, there's a lot of power that comes with being somebody's hero. Because that can determine everything. Anybody could have saved Tenko Shimura. Any hero at any point could have seen that kid on the street suffering from dealing with just one of the most traumatic experiences I've seen put to fiction, but they didn't. The only one who did was fucking All For One. And the difference with the altruism thing is that All Might and Deku and a lot of these other heroes, they do it out of the goodness of their heart. All For One is pure selfishness. He never saw Shigaraki as Tenko Shimura. He only saw Shigaraki as Tomura Shigaraki, the next All For One. He only saw him as a skin suit for him to eventually implant himself into. And All For One schemed and planned for that for decades. And his ultimate undoing is that it kind of worked too well because Shigaraki, Tenko Shimura, kind of actually falls somewhere in the middle. He's a very greedy character, but he's a little more like Luffy from One Piece, actually, where, like, he's certainly not a hero. He's certainly a lot more, like, evil than Luffy or anybody else that would be considered, like, a good guy. But at the end of the day, like, he just wanted friends. At the end of the day, like, he's just a lonely, bitter person who needed a hero that he never got. And the closest thing he really got to, like, that kind of acceptance was when he was the leader of the League of Villains. And that ends up being All For One's ultimate undoing because it's that kind of, like, camaraderie and trust that he breeds within the League of Villains that that causes him to, like, shelter away, like, Tenko Shimura deep inside of him, which then, like, resists All For One's influence and control and fights back against him. It is also what leads to the Jakku raid because of Twice. Because Twice is actually, like, a decent human being. He's just kind of a scumbag criminal, but he cares a lot about his friends, and he's a lot more selfless than anyone else in the League of Villains. And they, again, like, they were his hero. They were Twice's hero, and he gave his life to save Toga and Mr. Compress. And even though he was blaming himself that entire time because he's the one who let Hawks in, he's the reason why the raid on Jakku happened at all. They never turned on him. And that is unique. You don't see that a lot with villain team-ups. The fact that Dobby was like, it's not your fault twice, it's Hawk's. It's his fault. It's the fault of the Hero Society. This is what heroes really do. That was pretty powerful writing that really endeared me to Twice, to Dobby, and to the League of Villains as a whole, and to Shigaraki by proxy. And then, of course, at the very end, Deku is smashing in from the outside, and Shigaraki is clawing his way out from the inside, and the two end up like smashing All for One into smithereens together, and then they have their like final exchange as Shigaraki disintegrates. And there's the lessons learned there, because while all that was happening, Deku saw Shigaraki's origins. He saw what Tenko Shimura went through and how he got the way he was. And with him and Uraraka's quirk counseling program, they are making sure that never happens again. There will always be evil people. There will always be people like All for One and Overhaul who are just evil for evil's sake. There will always be people like Muscular who are just violent and love fighting and love challenging heroes and are just crazy and only see like their subordinates as disposable tools rather than as people. But the tragic villains, these more emotionally resonant villains, I don't think that they will be as much of a presence in the world of My Hero Academia going forward. I think Deku and Uraraka and the rest of Class 1A are really making sure that cases like Tenko Shimura and Toga and Twice and Dobby never happen again. And that's why I really like that Spinner was the one who survived. He's the only one who's still like kind of alive and well and has his whole life ahead of him. Mr. Compress as well, but Mr. Compress was kind of I like him. I really liked him in the Jakku raid, but he didn't really have as much of an impact as the other characters. But Spinner, like that's his super villain name, and he's going to be the one to spin the tale of Shigaraki. He's the one who's going to like immortalize the League of Villains' reign of terror in book or comic book form as a constant reminder of like, these are the flaws of the society that was. This is the possibility of what can happen again. Before I go on, High Power said, I just believe all of the Deku getting cucked and being a wagey is how it ended because it's funny. It is funny. Like the burger memes were funny when they were going on, but like it's not what happened. Coop said I stopped watching after Overhaul, so I agree with High Powered. Overhaul is, I hesitate to call it my favorite arc. And a lot of that's because I haven't read it in a while, but I did watch it in the anime a couple months ago, and the anime, they did not really do the arc justice. Like season 4 and season 5 really had a drop in actual production quality that really hurt the series. Ashberry had said Momo was the one who came up with the plan to stop Kageki Makia at the end of the First War. Yeah, I mentioned that. Probably after you typed it, but I did mention that. Bleacher says, but dick to his family. I guess that's in reference to Endeavor. Coop said you need to switch to the superior Dr. Pepper like I am currently drinking. I do like Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper has a really strong flavor. I can only really handle one can of it a day. Coke is one of those things that like I can just kind of drink for the energy of it. Uh, Especially like right now, little life news. A pipe burst in my apartment complex, so I don't have water for the next few days. Uh, Playchurch said Dobby is a villain. Yes, Dobby is a villain. He murdered a lot of people, a lot of innocent people. Although innocent is kind of like, you know, kind of a strong term. Another instance of My Hero Academia taking inspiration from Marvel comics is that like people are just fucking dicks. Like that's a big thing in Silver and Bronze Age Marvel. Is just like all the normal people are just fucking assholes. Like go to any like X-Men or Spider-Man comic book published from like 1962 to 1995. Flip open to any random page with a crowd shot of people in New York City. At least half of them are actual fucking Hydra agents, I swear. Like that's the excuse for how Hydra and AIM, the Hand, the Magia, and all these other groups, how they never have any problem recruiting this infinite army of goons for the heroes to fight is because everyone who isn't a hero is an absolute fucking scumbag, and most of the heroes are scumbags too. Uh, Coop said, just on a practical plot level, if you're running a thing where there's an army of good guys, the bad guys kind of need to have some loyalty to each other if they want to be a credible threat. Yeah, and that's something that, like, All For One hinted at, but All For One just didn't have a heart. Like, he understood that in theory, and he did, like, constantly have, like, an army of goons that he controlled, and he'd like give powers to people in order to like ingratiate himself to them, and he had various quirks in order to keep track of like loyalties and spy on them and make it to where like they can't lie to him. But he didn't have the like empathy to make that work long term, which is why like by the end of the series you have Gigantomachia actually turned on him. Gigantomachia is one of the most loyal members of the League of Villains, most loyal to All For One, and Gigantomachia got kind of like fed up with All For One's bullshit and was like, you keep abandoning me because you don't actually care, and then he smashes All For One. High Powered asks, who is the Orochimaru of MHA that survives at the end? I guess the closest thing to that would be Spinner. Although the Doctor survives. The Doctor is imprisoned after the Jakku raid. And he stays in prison for the entirety of season 7. So he's technically alive still. There's a couple other ones that are still alive. I believe Redestro is still alive. Overhaul is still alive. We saw him in one of the final chapters. But they're all imprisoned. Noah Wiley said, interesting analysis of the perspective of views of heroes and what made these the villains into villains. Yeah. Corbin Chronister said, they did show Mr. Compressed in the final chapter. I think reading the book, which was a nice deal. Yes. I didn't recognize him at first because we only saw his face like one other time, like one or two other times in the entire like series. High Powers asks, Overhaul was the Yakuza guy that hated quirks, right? Yeah, he was the guy with the Plague Doctor mask. Makito said, I like the Iron Man Deku memes. I haven't seen a whole lot of those memes. High Powers said, I can drink a 24 pack of beer in an afternoon. This is not a flex. Yeah. Noah Wiley said, the anime adaptation wasn't as good as the manga, so most adaptations... No, okay, so... Manga and anime have different strengths. They have different strengths, different weaknesses. There's a lot of ways that an anime can elevate the source material just by like having color and music and voice acting and the animation, the pacing, editing, shot compositions, all that stuff. Um, Season 4 and Season 5 of My Hero Academia were a downgrade compared to other seasons of My Hero Academia, both before and after. The animation wasn't as good. The soundtrack wasn't as good. Uh, the pacing wasn't as good. They really like mixed up a lot of stuff in season 5 in order to make the My Villain Academia arc the finale, and that really hurt the pacing of the Endeavor Agency arc in particular. High Power said, I feel like Lady Nagant is a good case study. I'm just glad she survived. Yeah, she also survived as well. Somehow. Came in clutch as well. You'll likely see that by the end of season 7, I think. Uh, that was like the ridiculous thing about like the final battle with Shigaraki that I really liked. Like I really like how everyone just like came in clutch. It was the cycle where, oh no, look, oh, it looks like Deku is finally like putting Shigaraki to task. Maybe he's gonna, do good, and then Deku like runs out of gas and has to like recuperate, and then Shigaraki gains the upper hand, and looks like, oh no, Shigaraki is about to use decay, and then the last person you expect to come in clutch ends up coming in clutch, and that's like the whole final part. It kind of starts with it really starts with the All for One battle. This episode recently came out in the anime where Jiro and rides Tokoyami into battle and uses her like a heartbeat throb move where she like amplifies her heartbeat through her gauntlets and hits All for One, and All for One's like, this is a pathetic attack. Oh shoot, it's actually resonating with my quirks, causing me to be paralyzed. Like that's the first instance of like nobody expected Jiro to come in clutch at all. She was like a C-lister at best, out of class 1A. But she was the first one to come in clutch, and it's thanks to her that they were able to destroy All for One's mask, which put him in a position where he had to use the airy quirk injection, which put him on a time limit. Like he's at full power in the anime. He's at full power now. But spoiler, obviously this has all the manga spoilers. But like throughout the next couple episodes, he's gonna be going on a rampage, the strongest he's ever been. But it's gonna come at a time limit, and so everyone's got to stall for time. And Gigantomachia is coming in, and Tokoyami's coming in with Dark Shadow Ragnarok, and Mount Lady's coming in, and Kirishima and Ashido are coming in, and then fucking Stain shows up and paralyzes him with the blood coagulation, and then fucking All Might shows up and his Iron Man suit, and that's actually my favorite part of the entire war is Chibi All for One versus Iron All Might. Just because it's so like ingrained with a lot of the other themes of the series, where like these are the old guard. They're having one last hurrah. All for One is like clinging to the past. He is clinging to the powers he used to have back in his prime, and he is trying to like get to Shigaraki to take his powers so that he can get all of Shigaraki's like physicality and youth and all the quirks that are injected into him, including decay, and then it'll be game over. He's doing that because he's just selfish and he doesn't care about Shigaraki as a person. He only cares about him as a vessel. Meanwhile, All Might, who should be retired, spends his entire life's fortune on an Iron Man suit that is capable of going toe-to-toe with All for One, and is designed with all the powers of the future. It's designed with support items that are all indicative of Class 1A. It's got sonic pulsars like Jiro. It's got the nanomachine Sung that replicate Momo's ability. It's got like power injectors like the Sugar Man. It's able to create a tail like Ojiro, a tongue like Asui, dark shadow construct like Tokoyami. It spews acid like Ashido. It has engine boosters like Ida. It's able to shoot fire and ice like Todoroki. It's got Black Whip. It's got the Tape. It can communicate with animals. It's got the Mineta balls. It's got Uraraka's zero gravity stuff. It's got the naval laser. It's got a cloaking field. It's got dupla arms. It's got who am I missing? Who am I missing? Oh, of course, it's got explosion powers like Bakugo, and it's literally like All Might putting his life on the line for the future, just stalling for time, trying to run out the clock, and using the powers of Class 1A to do it. How long have I been going? I've been going for almost 2 hours. Um, or have I? Have I actually been going for 2 hours, or have I been going for an hour and a half? I don't know. I think I've only been going for a little over an hour, for realsies. Uh, Coop said, I only ever saw pics of her. I don't know what her deal was. So Lady Nagant was an assassin for like the Hero Bureau. She was a spook. Uh, whose job was to like kill heroes who committed crimes, but do so like under the table so that the normal people wouldn't know, uh and the villains would take the blame. And then she ended up being like the fall guy of Hero Society, got imprisoned, and then got liberated by All For One. All For One became her hero for a bit, gave her a second power, and then yeah, it told her to go capture Deku. Uh, yeah, Ashbury said like Lady the Gaunt was Hawk's predecessor in the Public Safety Commission. They're having her do a bunch of behind the scenes dirty work to keep the public image, yada yada yada. Uh, Sup, Graham? Sam, My Hero Academia never really stands out to me. Uh, not nothing I can really say about that. Ashbury said after season 3, Bones put all their production on the production of the movie, so season 4 and especially season 5 suffered as a result of it. Yeah, that's the prevailing theory. First, would you rather a new series from the author or a new part of MHA? I would like, and this is not going to happen. This is if this ends up happening, I will eat my shoe. I would like for Kohei Horikoshi to give us a mini series highlighting like the personal lives and accomplishments of each member of Class 1A as adults. Like what are their hero agencies like? What are their sidekicks like? Do they have sidekicks? What kind of hero work do they do? Where are they operating? Are they married? Do they have kids? Yada yada yada. But I think if Horikoshi was interested in any of that, we would have gotten more of it in the final chapter, or gotten more chapters dedicated to the 8-year time skip. Uh, yeah, I know. I screwed up on the first 45 minutes. Uh, Corbin asked, do you think they could have used the Meta Liberation guys and redestro more after the first war, or what they state, or that they served their purpose? Personally, kind of wished they were a little more prominent. They technically are there in the final war throughout the whole thing, but they're treated just as fodder. The heavy hitters, the only real heavy hitters for the Liberation were Redestro himself, Getten, and Skeptic. Skeptic gets basically taken out by La Brava. Redestro, I believe, got captured. And Getten definitely got captured. Yeah, Getten and Redestro both got captured during the Jakku raid. Hypersa, you could say she even glowed in the dark. Yeah. Eduardo J. Cruz said they also tried to have her kill suspects before they committed a crime, which caused her to snap. Yeah, some Minority Report pre-crime stuff. Pre-crime stuff is always scary. It's like who determines that? Who determines what is a potentially punishable offense, and who's to say that they wouldn't have changed their mind when push came to shove? That's where like a lot of the altruism and self-defense stuff comes in. Where like, you have a lot of these heroes like All Might and Deku who they really do act out of everyone else's best interests. They really are just really good guys. But then you have guys like Endeavor, and you got guys like Stain who are a little more unhinged, and heroes and villains are kind of just two sides of the same coin. You have heroes who are not so virtuous, and you have villains who really just want to protect their friends, like Twice. Yeah, I was actually only planning on really going for an hour and a half, so I'm getting a little exhausted here. But yeah, I think that the way that this show, I'm gonna look something up real quick. So I think the way that the show handles its cast, uh, obviously like the hard thing about any ensemble cast is that you're never gonna satisfy everyone. There are people who there are people like me who unironically like Sero. Like I really like that he was one of the final people to come in clutch at the end. Like it was him, Ojiro, and Sato who saved Deku when Deku lost his arms. Uh, and I like that Sarah was one who was like, yeah, like all the stuff it builds character, but like I'd rather not have to go through all the traumatizing stuff. Like that's not it's not worth it. Um, I'm glad that somebody said it, and that glad that was my boy Sero, because Sero has one of the coolest designs, I think. Like I really dig his aesthetic. The fact that uh his whole costume looks like a tape dispenser. Is what I was trying to say. Uh, let's see. I already talked about crime and punishment, depression. There's a lot of commentary on mental health, especially with Toga and Twice. Like, I love that Uraraka's big contribution to Hero Society is the quirk counseling program. It really shows like how much of an effect her final fight with Toga had on her, and how tragic of a figure Toga is. Because Toga was just a normal high school girl who didn't get the support she needed. She had a quirk that everyone thought was disturbing and was better suited to villains, and she didn't have parents who really cared. Uh, they just told her not to do it. They didn't explain to her about like consent, and so she lived her whole life not really understanding why she was different and why she was weird and why people found her disgusting. And back to the theme of like the heroes and stuff, the first person to really hold his hand out was Shigaraki. And Shigaraki didn't really like her at first. He just saw her as another tool, but they did eventually become friends. And Twice especially, Toga and Twice especially got close. And then Dabi as well. It was Dabi who helped like her deal with the trauma of her past by burning down her childhood home and broadcasting her like backstory to everyone. See, I've officially been going longer than my Demon Slayer video, at least. Kind of looking at that. And how long did I go for on the Attack on Titan? I went for an hour 17 on Attack on Titan. I think we should go longer than those two, because I do care a lot more about My Hero Academia than I did Attack on Titan or Demon Slayer. I know that Raymond McNeil is currently working on a video about the Vigilante Deku arc, and I think that was the point where I liked My Hero Academia. It was already like top 20 favorite series anime for me. The Vigilante Deku arc is what really made me realize just how special My Hero Academia was and how much it really meant to me. Because it's Deku going through a depression arc and trying to like come to grips with the fact that he might have to kill Shigaraki, but he might not have to. And it's that old question. I can't remember what season of Daredevil it was. It's either 1 or 3. I want to say it was 1, where Daredevil gets asked by his priest, like, "Are you, are you troubled because you think that because you don't want to kill him, but you have to, or are you stressing over the fact that you don't have to kill him, but you want to? Like, what do you want out of this? Like, what does saving Shigaraki mean at this point?" Because there's also the crime and punishment angle. Shigaraki killed a lot of people. He deserved to at least be in prison for the rest of his life. Is that any better than him dying? Like, are you really saving somebody at that point? And I do like the conclusion Deku came to, where like he saved Shigaraki's soul. He honors his memory. He carries it with him for the rest of his life. One of the final panels is him like seeing an apparition of Shigaraki's ghost. And Shigaraki, I think, like realized that too. Like, the final word Shigaraki says, like, "If Spinner is still alive, tell him that Tamura Shigaraki fought to destroy to the very end. Now, do your best." Because Shigaraki had a lot of conniptions with the Hero Society, and he succeeded to a certain extent. Like, he succeeded in destroying the old order. He exposed a lot of the weaknesses in heroes. He drove a lot of the kind of more greedy, more self-interested heroes into retirement. And the people who stood firm, the people who stayed resisting him to the very end, they're the real heroes who deserve the acclaim, who would be, they would honor All Might's legacy a lot more, and honor like what All Might stood for, which not really Shigaraki's intention, but like he did by the end of it really empathize with like trying to be the hero to the villains, the hero to the outcast, the hero to people like Toga and Twice and Spinner and Dobby. And that's the world that Deku and Uraraka and Bakugo and Shoto and Ida and everyone else in Class 1A kind of create. Corbin Chronister said, "Funny you say that arc is what made you really appreciate MHA, since I know that was the point that a lot of discourse started occurring with the fan base and people were getting really split over it." Yeah, I don't know what exactly the discourse was because I did not read that arc week to week, and I was certainly not paying attention to the fandom at that point. But the only thing I remember from the fandom at that point was the mistranslation of something that Mineta says and all the ship baiters going crazy over it. Which is a real shame because like that was actually a really cool moment and it was like the coolest Mineta has ever been. Uh, no, another thing about ensemble cast is that you're not gonna please everyone, and sometimes a character you don't like gets a lot of focus. I don't care much for Mineta. I also don't care much for Aoyama. I don't even really like. I do like how the twist with Aoyama was executed. Is like, oh, it makes perfect sense. Like there's this thing where like the traitor was set up, and then it was kind of dropped for a long time, and Kohei Horikoshi apparently said like, oh, I kind of forgot about that. But then he apparently like remembered, and I want to say like when he remembered it, he remembered what the original plan was and actually stuck to it. Because when you go back and watch some of the earlier My Hero Academia stuff, there's a lot of hints that Aoyama was the traitor the whole time. Right down to the fact that his quirk gives him stomach aches. Like the only people we see whose quirks like actively hurt them like that are people with implanted quirks. Deku is the first example of that, with him breaking his own legs and arms and fingers and rest of his body. We see that with Aoyama with his stomach aches every time he uses navel laser. And we see that later on with Shigaraki with his like eczema skin condition and how he's constantly itching and stuff. And yeah, so it got revealed that Aoyama's quirk was given to him by All For One, and then it was like, oh, so that was kind of also the soft confirmation that of what the tell was, and that Shigaraki did not naturally have decay. That was something that was implanted in him by All For One at some point. Rob Crow 85 said Mirko was the greatest gift MHA gave to the world. Mirko is just thicker Yoruichi from Bleach, and that is a compliment. Shippers was why we have no shipping. Yeah, I could see that. Like, I could see Kohei Horikoshi was being like, fine, you all want to be mean about it. None of you are happy. None of you are going to be happy. You know? Bad apples ruined it for everyone. What's the notification? Oh my god. Why? Why the kangaroo girl coop? Do I want to? Do I want to actually show this? I'll man. I'm debating whether or not I want to actually put this in the stream. You know what? I'm going to. For just a sec. I need to organize my folders. This is what was just shared in the Discord by Coop. And now it's going away. Alright. So I think it's time to wrap it up. Silver comment said, I'm curious if Shigaraki Decay was stronger than its previous user. So if I'm remembering correctly, Decay is actually just one half of the quirk. And it was a lot more similar to Overhaul's quirk, where like he can decay things or return them to their original form. All for One apparently like stole that from somebody, split it in two, and then implanted the decay part into Shigaraki. But we never found out what came of the other half. If he just like discarded it, or if it was maybe one of the quirks that got destroyed by Stars and Stripes. I don't know why it's such a common thing for mangakas to put in so much stuff if them not being able to keep track of it is also so common. It's an ambition thing. You know, they bite off more than they can chew, and when you're in the week to week grind like you are if you work for Shonen Jump, then it's like you don't really have time to keep track of everything. You have to keep throwing new things on the page every single week for 10 years is how long My Hero Academia ran. Silvercon said if Horikoshi did it because of that, I would be disappointed. I mean, yeah, I'm a little disappointed with all that situation too. There was actually, I'm sure I said this years ago. I'm sure I've mentioned before that one of my biggest frustrations was the lack of progress with Deku and Uraraka. And because of that, like, I can't be fully satisfied with this ending. I still think it's better than a lot of Shonen Jump endings. Like, I think it's better than Demon Slayer. I think it's better than Naruto. And I think it's the final arc at least is better than Bleach. Although I think Bleach's final chapter was actually good. It was just the lead up to the final chapter that was kind of not at all. Hey man, that Kangaroosy be hitting different. Also, hello. Doing it. Oh. That feeling, I know where that was originally from. Yeah, so, those are my overall thoughts on My Hero Academia. I'll get into more detail, like, character to character. I kind of want to do, like, I want to do some kind of ranking video. Or maybe a couple ranking videos, or one big, long ranking video where I, like, have a couple different ranking videos all in one, and maybe, like, do some kind of, like, algorithm or whatever for a final ranking of the Class 1A characters, because I want to, like, rank them based on, like, their drip, their superhero outfits, their superhero names, because Bakugo almost has the perfect freaking superhero name, Dynamite, spelled Dynamight, which is just such a perfect encapsulation of his character, his ability, his power, his personality, his dedication to, like, being as victorious as All Might, but then he has to just be a butt about the whole like Lord Explosion God part, and it's like that's just such a mouthful. And there's a couple other mouthfuls of superhero names, like I Can't Stop Twinkling as a superhero name is just so silly. Uh, isn't Minetta's like grape juice or something like gross? Minetta's just a gross character. Uh, but as far as like my favorite superhero names out of Class 1A at least, like Red Riot. Red Riot's gotta be like number one. Him and Ingenium. Ingenium is also really good. Uh, Charge Bolt's one of those things that probably sounds a lot better to Japanese audiences. Same thing with like Cellophane, Aravity, Froppy, Creati, Anima, Tentacle. Uh, then you got like generic ones like Anima and Tailman and Sugar Man and Tsukiyomi. Like that's literally just in a Japanese deity. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Hour and a half, technically 2 hours of me constantly talking because yeah, because the mess up I did early on. But thank you all for coming by and tune in next time for more shenanigans. Uh, yeah, you definitely expect Red Riot out of a Western comic. But yeah, I'm starting to get all like hot and sweaty and musty in my room. I need to turn my fan back on. So you all have a good